One of the biggest ironies in my life is the fact that I'm currently a seminary student. Now, the reason why that's an irony is because I am going to pay about $40,000 in order to study the Bible. And see, what's weird about that is when I was 18 years old, I quit going to church. It's not that I was angry at God or intentionally running from God. I still believed in God. I just didn't think that God made a difference in my life. I didn't think that 1 hour a week at church was worth my time. And here I am now paying over $40,000 in order to get to know God. It is an irony. And see, the reason why I'm telling you this is because I feel as though I was like so many of you sitting inside a Sunday school. I went to Sunday school. I grew up in a good Christian home. My parents took me to church every week. We went to Wednesday night youth group. I went on a couple of mission trips. I mean, I was a good kid. So what happened? How did I go from being, the Sunday school kid that the teachers liked, that the parents liked, to being this kid who goes off to college and doesn't think an hour of his time is worth church? Well, this is what happened. I made small but spiritually significant decisions over and over and over again, and all in the same direction, and they led me away from God. My heart became hard until one day I wake up and I'm like, God doesn't really matter. He doesn't care about this life. And I don't want that for any of you. And the reason why is because the next 4 years of my life while I was in college were a nightmare. It was a train wreck. And so I want to prevent you from having to face that same consequences that I had to face. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the 3 spiritually significant choices that I made and that I made over and over again that led me away from God. And we're going to think about those, and I'm going to challenge you to actually make a decision about those things. So here's the first spiritually significant choice. It's, what are you going to treasure? Okay? What are you going to treasure? Are you going to treasure God, or are you going to treasure something else? There's this guy. His name was Gorgeous George. That's what the kids called him. And Gorgeous George had a wealthy father who owned a cattle ranch. And George's dad would always say to George and his brother, one day this land is going to be yours, and you're not going to have to worry about anything because the land's going to provide for you, and the land provides for the workers that work for you. One day George is 21, 22. He says, Dad, you want to know something? I don't want it. I don't want this land. I don't want your life. And his dad is bewildered, and he says, George, what are you talking about? And George has said, Dad, I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to see my name in the gold lights, and I'm going to see my face on the silver screen. I'm going to be significant. I'm going to matter. And George's dad is like, but George, you matter so much. You matter so much to your mother and I. You matter so much to the people of this community that depend on this farm in order to provide. And George says, shut up, Dad. I don't even want to hear it, okay? That's your life. That's not my life. I'm moving to California. That's what I'm doing. And this is what I want, Dad. I want you to sell my portion of the land so I can go out there. George's dad, obviously heartbroken, relents, and he says, okay, fine. So he sells his land. He puts $2 million into a bank account and gets George a plane ticket. George is on his way flying to LA, and he's seated next to this guy named Steven, Shady Steve. As Steven and George are sitting next to each other, Steven sees that George is wearing some nice clothes, and so he wants to hustle him, So Steven says, look, here's the deal, George, I love your plan. You're going to be going to LA, right? You want to make it to the big screen, and I get it, George. You have the face of a movie star, but the only problem is LA is the land of sharks. They're going to eat you alive. And George thinks about it and he's like, you know what? You're absolutely right, Steven. I need a manager. Will you manage me? And Steven's like, yeah, absolutely, bro. So the plane lands. Steven brings George to the swankiest hotel in downtown LA. They like rent out the penthouse suite of the hotel. That night, George and Steven go to the hottest club in LA. They rent out the back room. They get full open bar service. They start inviting all the cuties in to like party with them and stuff like that. And it's a rager. They're having a great time until like 6 in the morning. They go back home and crash in the penthouse suite. And the next morning they wake up and they do it all over again and again and again and again and again until 6 months later, right? George gets this phone call from the concierge desk and they say, George, your American Express black card just canceled out. Like, you're out of here. So here's George. He's broke. He's not kicked out. He's homeless. Steven's like, dude, I had fun, but that's about it. Like, better luck next time. So George is broke. He's homeless. He's alone. And over that past 6 months that he's been partying, he dabbled into some stronger stuff. And so now he's a full-blown addict, right? And the only thing that this broke, homeless, and alone kid can really think about is where he's going to get his next fix. So the next couple months, things go from bad to worse as he tries everything he can in order to get his fix. And he does things that, man, would make a Hollywood star blush. You know what I mean? And one day he wakes up after a 3-day binger, and he's in a pile of his own vomit and diarrhea, and he's like, how did this happen to me? Who am I? What is going on? And he starts thinking about home, Texas. And he says, man, I should have never left. Like I didn't even realize what I had out there. And he's like, look, thinks to himself, I need to get back to Texas. Like, I know my dad will never forgive me. I know that part of my life is just done. But maybe he'll let me stay in the barn until I can save up enough money and, live in an apartment someplace. So George is committed. He's like, I'm doing it. So he gets on a bus and he's rehearsing his apology. Dad, I've sinned against you in heaven. Oh, man, I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve to be your kid anymore. And the bus drops him off right outside of the gate of the long driveway. I mean, it's a ranch. It's like a quarter-mile driveway. And as George is, walking down the street, the driveway, his dad sees him, and his dad just drops everything and starts hauling it, just down the driveway, just screaming to everybody, George is back, gorgeous George is back, come on guys, we're having a party tonight, my son is home. And he gets there and he's just running, he tackles him, he throws him on the ground, he's hugging him, he's kissing him, he's, George, I love you, I'm so glad you're back, and George tries to get into that whole, Dad, I can't even call you my dad, I'm so sorry, I've sinned against you. And George's dad's like, enough, it doesn't matter, all that matters right now is you're here with me. All that matters is I love you. Think about this, guys. That story, Jesus told that story. And the Father is like our Heavenly Father. And George is like so many of us who wander away from Him in pursuit of fame and fortune and pleasure. We don't appreciate the things that our Father has done for us. And the question is this, are you going to be like George before he went to LA, right? Who treasured the fame and the fortune and the pleasure. Like, that's what he treasured. Or are you going to be like the George after LA who treasured a father that created this perfect little future for him? And even after George threw it all away, the Father says, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you're with me because I love you. And I love you because I love you. Because I love you. Because who I am is love. What are you going to treasure? God? A God who loves? A God who welcomes his lost children back? Or the world? It's the first question. Now the second question is, once you determine what you're going to love, right? And we're going to assume that you're going to love God, right? So you decide, I want to treasure God. Now, what's going to be your mindset, right, with that treasure, right? What is your mindset with your treasure? Is it going to be a passive mindset? Like, oh man, I have this treasure, it's for me, I'm going to hold on to it, I'm going to, like, bury it or whatever? Or is it going to be this mindset that's active, that's saying, man, I want more. I want more of this treasure, and I'm going to invest, and I'm going to go all in to get more of this treasure. Let me give you another story. There's this guy, his name is Lucas. Lucas would always walk to the grocery store on Thursday afternoons. Well, one day, as he's walking to the grocery store, he cuts through this old abandoned lot that's for sale. And as he's walking, he kind of trips over a log, and as he's pushing himself back up, something glitters in his eye. And so he leans down and he starts like digging in the ground, and he sees like this tiny little crystal, and as he continues to dig, he sees a couple more crystals and continues to dig and dig and dig, and he sees a diamond. And it dawns on Lucas, he's like, oh my gosh, like this land is on top of a diamond mine. So he grabs the for sale sign, he brings it to the realtor, and he says, look, give me 30 days. Give me 30 days. I'm going to buy this land. And so 30 days, for the next 30 days, Lucas sells everything. He sells his house, he sells his game station, he sells his car, he sells his clothes, he sells his furniture, everything. And in the process, he loses even more. Like, he loses his job because he's showing up to work late and sweaty because he has to walk. He doesn't have a car anymore. He loses his friends because they're like, man, he sold his game system. Like, he's not fun anymore. He lost the respect of his parents because his dad's like, I ain't raised no bum. He loses it all. They call him a fool. But after 30 days, Lucas takes all the money and he brings it to the realtor and he says, look, this is what I have. And the first thing he starts doing when he gets that land is he starts digging, right? He starts digging. And what's he digging? He's digging for treasure. Because he knows that there's more treasure to be found. And everybody that thought he was a fool realizes that he was not the fool, right? Man, he got it. Lucas got it. And that's the thing. This is the question. Okay, let's say you treasure God. You say, God is my treasure. So are you going to have that mindset like Lucas that says, man, I'm going all in. I want more. I want to get as much as I can out of this relationship. And if that means people call me a fool in the process, if that means that I have to lose certain things, like, so be it. I don't care, because I'm not a fool, because this is what I treasure. Or you're going to be the person that says, well, we'll see what happens. Like, I'll go to church on Sundays when it's convenient, like, yeah, God's my treasure, but, like, that's good. Like, he'll be on the side here kind of as a security blanket treasure. What are you going to do? So what are you going to treasure? And once you found your treasure, what are you going to do with that treasure? What's the mindset you're going to have? Now, the third question is, when are you going to begin? So, after I came back to my faith, I spent some time getting grounded at a church and then decided that there was something more. So I went overseas on a program called YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And when I was over there, we had a time of sharing stories. And so we shared our stories, and it was, everybody talked about, I did this and did that, and I grew up in a Christian home, and it was just kind of bland. And the next morning, one of the students got up and she said, I feel like there was more I needed to share. And so she shared something that happened to her that was super dark and really hard. And she's up there and she's sharing her story and she's sobbing, and there's just silence among all the rest of us missionary students. And the teacher, like the leader of the thing, she said, I think there's more people that need to share. And then she read something, and when she read this passage of scripture, it was like all of the cells inside of my body became handbells and they all started ringing. Ding, 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 ding. Or it was like an alarm clock was going on in my head. And it was like, I knew that this was for me, right? And this is what she said. She read, this is from Hebrews. She said, today, if you hear the voice of the Lord, don't harden your hearts like you did in the day of the rebellion. Today. And I was like, oh, that's for me. And at that point, I had a choice. Am I gonna start this journey today? When I hear God calling me, am I gonna start today? Or am I gonna say, well, maybe tomorrow? Maybe for you students, maybe it's like next weekend. Like I'm gonna wait until the end of next weekend because there's gonna be like this cool party. Or maybe after college, because during college, I'm gonna be doing some really cool stuff, and I really want to be able to focus on, sowing my wild oats while I'm young, and then when I get older. But here's the problem, like the Bible doesn't say, hey, if you hear God's voice today, go ahead and do something tomorrow. It says, today, if you hear the voice of the Lord, don't harden your hearts. So here's the 3 questions that you have to ask yourself. First, what am I going to treasure? Right. Second, what mindset am I going to have with that treasure? Active or passive? And third, when am I going to start? Today or tomorrow? Now what I want to do is I want to stop and I want us to respond, right? I want you to answer these 3 questions. And here's the reason why. When you make a choice, who has to deal with the consequences of those choices? You or somebody else, right? Let's say you do something bad. Who has to deal with the punishment? You do. If you do something good, who has to deal with the consequences? Who gets the praise? Well, that's a trick question. Your parents get the praise when you as a student do something good. But no, I'm just kidding. You, right? The choices that you make, you're going to have to deal with those consequences. And so whatever you make on these choices, these 3 choices, that's your prerogative. I would hope that you would choose to treasure God. I'd hope that you choose to go all in and invest in that relationship. And I hope that you choose to start today. But more importantly, I hope you choose. You have to make a choice. You need to understand that the consequences are something you're going to have to deal with. So that's my challenge to you. Make a choice, but know what it is that you're making a choice for. Bye.